Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure you've heard me say this several times today, but my name's Amy Gata. I work for the Sub-Zero Group Mid-Atlantic region. I cover Maryland, DC, and Virginia. I'm the trade rep, and I work for Sub-Zero Group. So I am going to be the moderator for this last session today, and we are going to introduce two of our NKBA Baltimore, Washington chapter board members. And first we have Julie Priddy, CMKBD, ASID, NCIDQ, and the owner of Accolades Incorporated. That's a lot of acronyms, Julie, which some people probably don't know what some of those are, but we'll get to that. And then Georgia Economakis, CKBD, Allied ASID, certified kitchen and bath designer, and she is a designer for American Cedar and Millwork. So we're going to pass this back and forth to talk and then go through the PowerPoint presentation. Julie, very briefly, just say what some of those acronyms are and your role with NKBA.
Okay, thank you, Amy. My acronyms mean Certified Master Kitchen and Bath Designer, which means I've been a certified kitchen and bath designer for 10 years, and I have a minimum of 100 CEUs and some other things, and I sat for all the exams. And then ASID is American Society of Interior Designers, the professional accreditation. Lots of exams there as well. And NCIDQ, National Council of Interior Design Qualifications, which is the body that does the exams for ASID.
And my acronym, or my appellation, CKBD, means I am a certified kitchen and bath designer. And to earn this certification, you do have to have several years of education, a degree in interior design, or related field is preferred. And I also had to take kitchen and bath classes and torture myself for about 3 months and take a very difficult exam and discovered a lot of profanity in the process, but it was very well worth it. And Allied ASID is a part of the American Society of Interior Designers. The only reason mine differs from Julie's is I am not a certified interior designer. So that's just a little bit of background there. And I am this, I'm sorry.
Before we go on, what's your role with NKBA?
My role is I am the communications chair for the Baltimore, Washington chapter. So I am the one that's involved in all the media, all the newsletters that everyone gets. That's me behind the screen.
So Georgia and I work very closely together on the council because the past couple of years, I've been planning the educational activities for our local region, Baltimore, Washington region. And so Georgia and I worked very closely with, if you have a company that's going to sponsor an NKBA meeting, they'll send the marketing materials to me and I forward them to Georgia, and she writes the newsletter. And both of us are also online when we're doing remote CEUs, and we just work in concert together. It's really nice. And I will be the upcoming president of NKBA starting January for 2 years. I am now also a professor of interior design at Montgomery College in Rockville, and I teach all the kitchen and bath design classes as well as the 101 class and how to run an interior design business.
Okay. Great. Okay, so we are going to talk a lot about NKBA, and we're going to start off with the kitchen and bath design guidelines and standards. And we're going to go through a PowerPoint presentation here, but both Julie and Georgia are going to share their expertise as we go through these slides, and then talk also more about design trends and keeping our sanity with our clients. So stay tuned. First of all, who would like to start with talking briefly about guidelines and code requirements?
So NKBA puts together standard guidelines. They are based off of the residential codes. So in summary, these are guidelines, but these guidelines are developed in order for the end user. So there are some guidelines that are the most basic ones. The triangle, which everyone knows about the triangle. Oftentimes you'll get a client that'll say, oh, I've designed a kitchen before. I know about the triangle. And that makes them a professional, right? We've all been there. So I just agree and say, yes, wonderful. So some of the guidelines are developed, for example, the doorways to be able to get in the doorway. Oftentimes if someone is for universal or for ADA, and also for traffic flow around the kitchen. Typically a two-person kitchen is going to require 48 inches clearance between the cooking area and the island, and 42 for one.
So
This
we're going to talk about that in a little while.
I'm looking at that slide. Well, thank you for for correcting me on that one. It's all good. Comedy hour here.
Are we going to this slide?
Yes, we are going to that slide.
You mentioned that work triangle.
Work triangle. The main thing in determining the guidelines, not every guideline is going to be met in a kitchen, because at the end of the day, we have to do what the client wants. The first thing we want to pay attention to is safety, then the codes, and then of course the guidelines, pretty much all at the same time. And that's what a lot of the guidelines are based off of.
Can I just point out while George is talking, the work triangle goes between the kitchen sink, the refrigerator, and the cooking surface. So you want to have a minimum of more than 4 feet, but less than 9 feet for each leg. And they total usually around 26 feet or less. So, go ahead, Georgia.
And that's a very important point. And the first thing I normally do in my first conversation with a client, I ask how many people are in that household and who are the end users going to be? How do they function in their space? How often do they entertain? I even go as far as I pay attention to certain things. If they seem to have poor vision, I'll in a roundabout way ask them about that. But I basically say, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about this project. And people love talking about themselves, and I get a lot of information that way. And that's oftentimes where the guideline comes in. And I just want to point this out. Oftentimes people feel that, oh, well, I'm not in a wheelchair. I don't have a walker. But let's say somebody gets into an accident, God forbid, and they need to be on crutches. How are they going to get by certain ways? So it's always very important to design the kitchen accordingly. If they go to sell the house, how is that going to look to the potential buyer? So that's, again, the summary of that.
And also, I mean, those are really good points, but we have to find out sometimes, is this their forever home, or is this a home that they're going to put on the market soon? And then, we would have different criteria then, but that's really important to know if it's their forever home and how old they are. Oh, how old they are as well. If they have lots of kids, we want to make sure we don't have sharp corners on the ends of the countertops that they could run into. We might think about the height of things like the microwave in the kitchen, because if they're taking things out of the microwave, we don't want its hot liquid to scald or land on somebody. So we pay attention to that. But what Georgia started to talk about is this slide right here about how many cooks would be in the kitchen. So if we have one cook in the kitchen predominantly, then we would have 42 inches of clearance between the island and any of the other work surfaces in the kitchen. And if we have 2 cooks, we're going to want to have about 4 feet or 48 inches of clearance, as you can see right here. So we could probably go to the next slide, Amy. Thanks. And then the other thing I'll always, and some people overlook this, is we have to really pay attention to what's the traffic flow through the kitchen, or what is, how do we get through this space? It's not just around the work zone, but how do we get from, I know we have more open plans these days, but sometimes we're in a smaller space, because if you're in a more of a urban area where homes are smaller, you have to pay a lot of attention to the circulation area of a space that you're working with as well. So 36 inches is our minimum there. All right, and then right here, we're talking about having space on either side of a cook surface, landing space, prep space. It's usually about 12 inches or 15 inches on either side of the cooking area. And then the other issue that's really important, it's a safety issue, is how close can the cabinets or the ventilation system be above that cook surface? So if it's a protected surface, it can be, the minimum, the closest it can be is 24 inches. Now, if it's an unprotected surface, let's say somebody has a downdraft and then they have a wood cabinet up above, 30 inches is as close as you would want to get for the distance between the cook surface and the bottom of a wood cabinet. Now, when I'm working with my clients, typically I want to have, depending on the height of the person and also the amount of ventilation that I need, I'm going to be somewhere between, I'd say 27, 30 inches clearance of the vent above the cook surface. And probably most of you know that you want to have at least the same size hood or ventilation system above your cook surface or slightly larger.
And one additional note to mention here, remember, these are recommendations. It is not code. A lot of people ask, and typically you hear the 30 to 36 inches above the cooking surface to the bottom of the hood. It depends on the homeowner's heights. Can they reach it? Are they going to be bumping their head into it? So you have to really, go with the whole environment, who's in it, who's using it, and just the key fact of that, it's not code. These are recommendations.
I'm trying to read the slide and see what that's actually saying.
Just saying why we go functional. Attention to detail. Aesthetics added later.
When we go and plan a kitchen, oftentimes a lot of your consumers will think, and sometimes, no offense to anyone here who's a contractor, will say, okay, this is very straightforward. Even the most straightforward kitchen requires a lot of thought, a lot of detail. Obviously, the guidelines and the codes, are one thing. I often go into role playing with clients. If they feel confident, I'm like, okay, stand here. Here's a tape measure. They're like, oh, this isn't going to work very well. So that's one thing.
So you
and
put them in the space.
I put them in the space and really, really consider everything. So to come up really with a preliminary design, it does take a lot of thought. Especially with the end users. And I also consider how long the family's going to live there. Like if they're growing children, with the bathrooms, which we don't really have any images of bathrooms, but some vanities are 32 inches high. When those kids get older and older, I mean, they're going to get taller. So I think about these things, and it's important to bring these things up with your clients because your clients don't think about these things, and they're not supposed to. If they did, we would all be unemployed. So they come and I will say, well, have you considered this, or have you considered that, or what was your thought process behind this? So, and that all comes into play.
Great, thank you. Okay, so that's just a brief overview of some key highlights of NKBA guidelines and standards. Of course, you could go on to their website, nkba.org, for more details. And we're going to switch gears real quick now, talk about some fun stuff. Got rid of the boring stuff, but it was necessary. So let's talk. Yes, the vegetables are done. So let's start by talking about some more design trends from here, because that's the fun stuff. Julie, you want to start?
Sure, thank you. So we've had white kitchens, gray kitchens. They're still there. They're still popular, but we are gravitating towards warmer colors now. And not just like beige, beige and gray. We're going to more solid, warm beiges, and of course more colors as well. I think blacks have been around for a little while, and navy has been around a little while, but we're getting more intense colors, pops of colors, not just on the island, but everywhere. We also have more organic styles, rounded corners. I think it's really like futuristic looking and playful and fun, and you'll see slides of that, as well as, because of COVID and other things going on lately, touchless faucets, anything that promotes hygienic treatment of surfaces. And of course, technology is just going crazy right now. Should we switch? Here, Georgia.
So as you see here, we have dark colors, a lot of saturated, black, painted cabinets, blues, greens, a lot of contrasting colors. Granted, the colors are not for everyone. White will always be classic and be timeless, but I am also getting a lot of requests for the green and the painted and definitely, the stained as well. Usually a good rule of thumb to really kind of really get your client to, or impress your client, so to speak, look at the clothes that they're wearing and look at the colors. Look at the colors around their house. At one time in my career, I took a chance and the client wasn't really sure what color to go with because oftentimes people want to know what are people doing these days. I asked if I could see her closet. And I looked at all of her clothes and I went off of that. So
You want her to look good in her environment.
exactly. So he or she.
Thank you.
And the
Yes,
other rule of
absolutely.
thumb is look at fashion in Europe. Fashion in Europe is going to dictate the interiors in the United States. It used to take about 3 years, but now with the use of the internet, it is taking a lot longer. I was just in Greece, so I saw it for firsthand. Shorter time period. So a lot of pops of color and personality. It does not necessarily have to be in cabinets. You may have some clients that are a little scared of color. So you may want to say, okay, we can put it in a countertop or in the backsplash. A backsplash is cheaper or less expensive and a little bit easier to replace in about 6 to 7 years rather than cabinets are. So that's another area where you can change things around. Lighting, and sometimes if they're really gun shy about the colors, I say, you know what, throw in a couple of red cups, you're good to go. And they're like, oh, that's a good idea. So it really is the truth. And a lot of the mixed metals, and they're also mixing a lot of different textures that you wouldn't even think of in a kitchen. You personalize it to make it theirs.
All right, so have any of you seen light stained wood cabinets coming in now? Are you guys specifying that? All right, yeah, they're showing up all over the place now. We've had painted cabinets for so long, and I love to think with marketing, the more something is out, it's going to be back in sooner. We haven't had stained cabinets for a while, so they can be paired with painted cabinets or stand alone. And I like this slide up here. It's a little hard to see, but it's a rounded island and rounded pendants over top, so that brings in the organic style as well as the lightly stained cabinets. All right, so there's a slide here about appliances and trends on appliances. One of the hottest trends right now, or maybe should I pass the baton? Okay, I'll go and then I'll pass the baton. Okay, one of the hottest trends right now is white appliances. The GE Profile, I bet Sub-Zero has one too, I'm sure, right?
We shouldn't be discussing any brands.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so scratch. Thank you.
We're not promoting any
No,
brands.
we're not. No, we're not. No. Okay, so thank you. Anyway, so we've got these lovely white appliances from someone, and and of course these appliances have lots of technology built in. You've seen this on some of the commercials where you can say, Alexa, get my oven to preheat, or start the dryer cycle, or whatever. So that's really big right now. And also, well, steam ovens are huge right now. I went to a seminar recently where they talked about that, and I can't say who told me that. And those are wonderful. I wish I had a steam oven. Are you guys specifying steam ovens? No? Do you know about them? Do you want to know a little bit more? Okay. So they hydrate the food. Okay. They add, microwave sort of takes out some of the hydration of a food, and steam ovens cook faster. And they take these leftovers that you have that may take a little longer to heat, but they make them more like they were before they were leftovers. So that's an awesome thing. And then glass panels for refrigerators so you can see what's in them. And some refrigerators, when you're at the grocery store, they'll tell you what's in your refrigerator. They'll send you a picture. So that's kind of cool, I think. Different touch controls on the surfaces of appliances, either a touch control, and then it will pop open. What else? Oh, built-in vacuum sealers, so that if you have a wonderful steak or something and you want it to have a longer life, it'll suck the air out and seal it, and so you can freeze it for a little bit longer.
If I could add something to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Also, with keeping in mind now, with more and more people cooking at home, buying more groceries, not going out to eat, so they're buying in bulk from Costco or BJ's. A vacuum seal drawer is great for storing their food in the freezer. And a lot of these appliances are even more important in general because they're home actually using them. So talking to them more about, with people cooking at home and eating at home more than they used to when they were eating out is definitely a change we're seeing in the community. So something to add with that.
And colorful appliances are coming in. And not just with the overall, like if you have a blue range, but the knobs and the bezels are sometimes changing colors too. So lots of personality coming out on appliances.
And one thing that I want to add with these appliances, appliances are not made the way they used to. They don't last as long as they used to, but a lot of the appliances that clients are going for or want to go for also have that high price tag. And that's one thing that clients have come up to me, well, why should I pay this much for this? And one thing to say, first, we all know in this room, you get what you pay for no matter how you try to spin it. Food preservation is very, very huge. And to Amy's point, with people eating more at home, entertaining more at home, there's a lot of different appliances that can provide different functions. Some people are still working remote. You have the families. Oftentimes, it's good to have, the speed oven, have it a little bit further away from the meal prep area. Somebody can go, a kid, teenager, whomever, the husband, or even the wife, whoever is the cook. Go in, get what they need from the refrigerator, pop it in the speed oven. They're out of everybody's way. So that's really something important to think about. And when you bring these things up, they're looking at you as the expert, and you tell them, I always say, have you ever thought of a speed oven? And they oftentimes tell me, what is that exactly? I show it to them. I'm like, 3 functions in one. You can't beat it. And their eyes light up. It really will be. Convention, broil, and microwave.
Oh, wow.
I had a test about 6 months ago. I obviously passed it.
Good job. That's why you're a certified kitchen and bath designer.
Right? Yes.
Can we move on to storage and cabinetry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did go to that slide. Another big thing is your different storage options. People do like to be organized with the knives, different utensils, pantry options, things of that nature. So that is something that is that's huge.
It's actually a way to take your design to the next level. If you really specify and investigate what their storage needs are and how they cook, then you can really personalize it for them. And I thought this was really phenomenal. I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is a pantry room behind a kitchen cabinet door, which I think is really amazing. So it's hidden, it's like your secret room in the kitchen. So you have a big room back in here, and each of these.
You can hide from your family.
Yeah, if you don't want to cook, you can snack in the pantry room.
Panic room.
The panic room, perfect. Or the escape room. How about the escape room? You can put the kids in there, and they have to figure out the clues to get out, right? Okay. Well, they probably will. All right. Okay. So also right now, the built-in look, especially as we have more open plan homes here, we want our kitchens to just seamlessly work with all the other areas that the kitchen is open to. So our design is a little less kitcheny. It's a little more cabinet oriented, high-end materials for countertops and for the cabinetry. But it definitely works with the family area, the dining area, the entertainment area. So you can see that this look right here is got lots of different types of materials. It's got onyx, it's backlit right in here, which is a focal point. It's got the open shelves, lots of lighting options. This has a lot of greenery in the background, which most people are bringing the outside in as much as they can. It's a very healthy sort of room for them, with what plants do for air circulation. And there's a lot of different materials in here. There's wood, there's stone, sometimes you'll see brick. And so now it's George's turn.
A lot of mixed materials. The one thing that sometimes you may run into is if you're working with a husband and wife team, the husband may want contemporary, the wife wants Victorian. That happens more often than not. So to avoid divorce court, you put them together. And there are a lot of different ways that you can do it. It's kind of interesting because earlier, Julie and I were kind of doing just a practice run, to make sure we didn't screw up today.
Our little comedy hour.
It was a little comedy hour. And she was pointing out this kitchen saying, I know you're going to get mad, but this is kind of Victorian. I kind of looked at her. But it's true.
Well, I meant the colors.
The colors, but you can bring things together. It doesn't mean that the legs have to be Victorian on this contemporary island. It could mean the different textures, the glassware in the glass. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. The mixed metals, you can put painted cabinets with stain, like we talked about earlier, and just bring it all together. It's a personality, and it should speak the client.
Yeah, it should. But when you're mixing things when you're mixing metals, you have to do it carefully. It's not a hodgepodge decision there. We have a thoughtful process of how much of different metals we want in there, but most people are mixing metals. So we'll have a lot of stainless going on, and then we might have a gold or antique brass faucet, as well as the sconces or pendants in the room would go with that. And maybe the hardware and the drawer pulls are oil rub bronze. Now to go to a different slide here, we have our organic shapes here, which I said is kind of futuristic looking. I don't know if you've ever gone to Disney World and seen the world of the future. This kind of reminds me of it a little bit, or if you're old enough to know the Jetsons. Anyway, I love the round shapes, the shapes of the bar stools. It's fun, and it reflects whimsy and personality and quirkiness, which I think brings a lot of personality to the space.
A lot of rich countertop solutions. Marble, onyx, and quartz. Quartz is really becoming huge. I mean, it's been around for a few years. And what's happening with quartz, people are really getting away from granite. The maintenance of granite really turns them off. And honestly, people don't feel like going to slab yards anymore and looking at their countertops. I still require that, actually, because sometimes even with the quartz materials, and something to think about, sometimes where the direction of the veining and where it goes, they may want that veining in their island. You certainly don't want them to be unhappy and say, can I change this out because you didn't tell me? So that's one of the things to think about. Marble is still something that's desirable, but I always say, because it is a very porous material, I always suggest putting it like in a baking center. It has to be in the appropriate space.
All right, moving along to outdoor spaces or connecting with the outdoors. I think this is a very hot market right now. If you talk to anyone who's in landscape architecture, there's more pools going in than ever. So we have an opportunity to do outdoor kitchens as well. And this is taking our indoor kitchens to the outside, but using the appropriate materials, the waterproof cabinets, the stainless cabinets, countertops that can hold up to weather. But right now clients are craving really healthy outdoor spaces, and we can be further apart. There's plenty of ventilation, so this is very desirable. And then on top of that, having some kind of garden handy. More people are growing their own food, or at least having their own personal garden. And so if you have the opportunity, maybe you can help with that area as well. Raised garden beds are easy to work with, generally speaking, and then you may have an indoor garden in your kitchen as well. You've probably seen that on some of the HGTV shows where they'll have things on a wall that are growing, or in this backsplash right here on the island. Pretty great ideas.
Thank you. Something before we go on to managing our clients section, just remember when you're talking about outdoor spaces, it doesn't matter the size, the style, the home, a condo with a deck, a large home. It doesn't matter geographically where they live. You can create that extension of their indoor home outdoors. And again, a lot of people are cooking more at home, grilling more at home. So, and this always adds value to the home, and people might not even be thinking about it, saying, "Oh, I don't have room for it. I don't know what to do." There's a lot of different options here, and this is only going to bring another job for you to create and then get more money.
And solve the problems that the client has.
Speaking of client problems, let's talk about managing our clients with some design challenges. We'll have to keep this brief, but say our points. Here you go, Georgia.
So it's no secret that the pandemic has caused a little bit of challenges, and we're all feeling it. Delays with materials, some materials being discontinued, appliances having lead times of about 10 years. It's happening, and we get to be the lucky ones to tell the clients this. So one thing that we have started to do is our approach now is a little bit different. Unfortunately, you don't find this out until after the fact. It happens. A good way to manage this is keep their expectations lower, so to speak. Let them know what the cabinet lines, what the lead times are. If they are 20 weeks, I would add about 2 to 3 weeks, because chances are when you say it's going to be about 20 weeks, the next day you're going to get an email saying it's now 30. It happens. Appliances the same way. If they really want these appliances, like, I really want this, I really want to wait 2 years, I don't care, suggest that they keep their existing appliances. They're going to be a little bit inconvenienced, but the more upfront you are with it, the better off it's going to be. You're not going to lose a sale, because right now what's happening, it's lead time shopping. And they're going to find that wherever they go, it's really the same story. So that's one thing that we do. And also, you know how we avoid situations? Just step that up a little bit more. But generally, people are definitely understanding as long as you communicate with them. And the one other thing I do want to point out before I hand this over to Julie, especially with jobs where there's an addition being put on, or walls are going to be removed. Obviously, if the job has to go smooth, you're not able to do a final double check measure. I always check things like 4 times. But what happens is, if you have to get these cabinets in and get these appliances ordered, a good way to do it is make sure that you get drawings signed off on, make sure you talk to the contractor, even when the framing is up or even when it's not, you let that contractor know and the client, this has to be framed exactly how it is. And what I've started doing now, not only the client signs off on drawings, but the contractor does too. Because what that does is that takes that liability off of you.
Well, he's reviewed it.
Well, and he has reviewed it, but it also takes the blame game away, because when you have those signatures, you've covered yourself. So that's pretty much how we're handling that, and a lot of praying.
Do you want to talk about the 2 bottom bullet points?
The price increases. There's definitely been a lot of price increases.
I
where
had a thought on the price increases that I heard earlier.
The microphone.
Well, then here you go.
Yeah, I heard this earlier actually from Chris Landis, and I'm going to steal his idea, okay? That's what we learned today. I liked his idea of keeping an allowance until you're closer to the closing time. And I know, you're placing your orders. If you're close to that time period, there is probably going to be a change from when you interview the client to the schematic drawings. He said he waits till design development to get close, or right before they give him the check. He's then narrowing down, this is what things are going to cost. And I probably, with transparency, say, we want to tell you as soon as we hear, but we don't always hear right away. So we have to stay flexible. We don't know when these price increases are coming, but we will let you know as soon as we are told. Yeah.
And just to add about the price increases, now more than ever with, there's issues with a lot of the different parts and pieces to the puzzle that come out of nowhere, that, there was a storm and that supplier just took away that part, and now all of a sudden you don't have the parts, stops production. The price increase happens because of that. There's delivery issues, there's no shipping containers. These are all different factors for a lot of different parts of your project that are causing the price increases. So it's not just specific brands. I mean, it's everything being affected by all of this chain supply. So keep that in mind and share that with your clients.
So if you have vendors that you trust, really share that with your clients. You have really trusted vendors that are staying on top of information as best as possible. They're sharing it with you. And so that's a big difference. And also when you work with a professional, they're in it day in and day out. Whereas somebody who is, doing a kitchen once every 10 years, trying to do it themselves, they won't know as much about what's going on, and they don't have those relationships that professionals have developed with their trusted vendors. So I'll let Georgia go next.
The one thing I do with the price increases, I also kind of use that to my benefit a little bit, because let's be real, this is our passion, but we are here to earn a living and to make money. So depending on the business models, I know with us, it's about also servicing that client, selling that lifestyle. But oftentimes what I'll do is when I can kind of see the pattern with the cabinet lines that we carry. So if I'm sensing another price increase, I will let the client know, okay, right now, this is where you are. But by, I don't know, October the 21st, there's going to be a price increase. Your price will stay this way provided that the order is placed by the 20th, which means we have to go to contract a week prior. Right. And I always say a week prior because there's always that 2 or 3 day lag where they have to transfer money, get their funds together, whatever the case may be. So this could also be a good way for you to close that sale sooner after everything is done. So that's what I do.
DIY versus pro.
This is my favorite.
Go. Well, talk fast.
Go, girl.
Talk fast. You'll only have a few minutes.
So we all know the horror stories with DIY versus pro. Some people feel like they can do that themselves. We don't mind the DIYers. We're perfectly fine with that. Our business model is selling the product. We don't offer installation services. But oftentimes what people find is I always tell them how they can save money by hiring somebody like us, because we also know it's available. We have the relationships with these suppliers. These suppliers, it behooves them to give us that good price point. It behooves them to try to move something along as quickly as possible because we're going to give them more business. Whereas a do-it-yourselfer may not have that kind of luck and they may not know what they're doing. I mean, obviously you don't say that to them, but there are ways that we can sell our services and our area of expertise. Another thing I also do is ask them questions. What were you going to do here? Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, you're very talented. How are you going to approach that? And I say, okay, if you have any questions, I am here to help. And then they start realizing, oh, maybe we kind of can't do this ourselves. Maybe we'll just do the painting. Just a rule of thumb there.
I like to also know, have you had a remodeling experience before and how did it go? So I'd like to know basically if anything went wrong and make sure that I'm extremely careful in that area. I remember one of my clients saying that the girl underordered the amount of tile, and then the tile had to be ordered from Italy, and it held up the job 6 months. So then, of course, I can get into, well, there's going to be a waste factor in this job, and we're going to order extra material, and we're going to check the dye lots and make sure everything is the right color as well as the grout. So I find out where were the hitches before, or if they've never gone through a remodel before, giving them a little bit more education about that. So we're able to do that if they're working with a professional. And so we're educators, we're psychologists. Have you ever worked with a husband and wife team where they have completely different tastes? Yeah? Have you ever gone to a store where the wife likes everything that the husband doesn't like and the husband likes everything the wife doesn't like? I remember that happened and one time, and they both liked one thing in the entire store, and I'm like, there it is. All right, we're going with that one. So that's our job.
Great. Okay, so we're almost at the end here. I want to tell you some comments some statements that Georgia and Julie shared with me that I wanted to share with you to keep your clients sane during the decision phase. These are some things to think about. Set the clear expectations, being transparent right from the beginning. Preparing them for the good and the bad from the beginning. Being calm, positive, funny. You, as the trade professional, sets the tone. You do. And always having the decision maker present is key. You may think you know who that person is. You may not. So figure that out right from the beginning. We have just like one more minute or two. Are there any questions for our guests from NKBA?
You guys had any interesting experiences recently that you want to share?
Is everybody?
I think you have.
Okay, well, it is 4 o'clock, and it is time to end this presentation. Can we give Julie and Georgia a round of applause?
Thank you for coming, especially at this hour.
Yeah.
It's been
And-
a very long day.
Yeah, a lot of people like to cut out before this is over, so thanks for staying and safe travels.
Thank you.